Hello everyone, I figured it was about time for another spiritual Sunday. So, yes. So it's been a while since I've last talked to you all. But again, I'm just so glad that we get to see each other again. I don't get to see you, but I'm glad you all get to see me. Bless you all. May you all have a blessed week, a blessed month, a blessed rest of the year. And yeah, it's time to get started. So, here's what we're going to be talking about today. Off the top of my head, we're going to be talking about creation. We're going to be talking about how we are God's creation. So, have you ever written something? Have you ever written a book, written a short story, written any small little inkling, or at least a character? Any character that you formed in your mind, even if it's imaginary? Well, you are similar to that character. You are a character again in a story. This is like a video I made about 3, maybe 2 years ago. But you being a character in a story is in a sense is very empowering and also very frightening, because oftentimes we say an author is contextually writing himself. But in a way, he's not doing that. He's writing for the sake of the character. He's writing for the audience, but also more so, he's writing for himself about a character. He's writing about what he would perceive a character to do. So, for this character that's written in life, in time, you have to think about that character as someone, again, who's in a story. But this story is not really your own as a character. It's somebody else's story. Someone wrote it. So that's what history is. That's what time, that's what everything that you see around you is. It's written by somebody else. Somebody else wrote the story. But someone would say, hey, you can write your own story, you can script it. Yes, you can. But understand this. Even if we write a story about ourselves, know that someone had to write that story that we write about ourselves. This is an interesting conversation about whether we have free will or not, whether we have, this power over our own reality. The idea was to empower ourselves. We do have a sense of control over our lives. Is it true? Is it not true? Yes. We have free will to the extent of what we can perceive as free will. But on the other side of the writing is pen. If a writer is writing X, Y, and Z in your mind, that's the way it can go. But another way to think about your characterization is not as a written thing. It is a drawing. So if I write a drawing, on a piece of paper, and this piece of paper comes out perfect, I created it in my image, basically. But I have to do one more thing. I have to breathe the breath of life into it. That's going to be a moving drawing. It does have a sense of free will. It has a sense of autonomy that most would consider to be, avoided. I did not create myself per se, but when I drew that thing in my image, when I breathed the breath of life into that image, it started to move like that. So like a potter and the clay, he forms the clay with his hands. So this clay is formed, all right, from the potter's hand. That's who you are. Another way to think of it is a programmer when he's programming a machine. So you are a living machine. So when you look at your body, the way it works, it is programmed. Your brain is programmed to do certain functions. Other people can program it, but the original programmer, the original designer, God, when he programmed you, everything, put all this stuff in your DNA. Biologically, psychologically, metaphysically, all this stuff in your DNA. That's just who you are in creation. But beyond that, when you look at your soul, the very essence of your soul is like a sound. Because the sound is a disturbance of matter from its position. So it's going outward. You are basically the vibrations, the sounds. You are spirit, you are soul in time. This is going to sound a little bit higher than this, but you are beyond the dimensions of all of the creations because of the sound within you, the soul of a man. So think about God, the creator of all these things, as the architect, the builder of these all things. So think about all these things he's done in creation, created you within the world. A world which is like, you can say, a game. A game which programmers make video games, but you look at the world today, the third dimension, you look at the world around you, it is like a video game. But think of it like this. Even if you have choices in this game, you're still not in control. You're like, but what if I had the power? Imagine you have all the power and you don't understand any single thing that goes on around you. You don't understand the game. You have choices. That's it. Choices. But if you choose to play the game, you will have those choices. So that is your free will in the box. It's not actually free, because even if you put the CPU on and the CPU is in control, the subconscious mind, that way, with the subconscious mind, the CPU is in control, you still don't have control. Basically, if your desires and your wants are the head of your life and not God, you are never in control to begin with. If you make God in control, you will have more control, period. So pray often, and again, don't worry, because the world as you see it today is like the game we talked about. The truth and the purpose of life is to play the game and not get played yourself. It's to say to treat others with kindness. Treat others how you want to be treated. Because know this, on the other side, you are a reflection of them. God made you special, but know this. You are no more special than the other person next to you. No more special than your enemies, no more special than your friends and family. That God has purposed you in this life. He had purposed you in this body. He had programmed you to do a certain function, to do His will and not your own. Because if you let the CPU take over, the subconscious mind, you'll still be like the world. And you'll never be able to overcome a thing, because people have been programmed by this world. So it's time to break the programming function and know that God is in control. It's to let Him lead the way. Because if He leads the way, then you will have more control. You will be saved. So all this that's going on, I must say, was Spiritual Sunday. Like I've said before, God is in control. You never had control. Governments never had control. These secret societies never had control. These systems and powers never had control. See, God is always in control. It's never been the other way around. You see, you might see the forces of darkness being in control, but they were never even there to begin with. All of the illusions were created to make them think they had more power than God. But no. God has more power than the serpent. God has more power than the forces of darkness that you can't see in high places. He has more power than those things. You see, God was always in control this whole time. And you need to know that God is not yourself. Even though you were created from God, the character is not the author of the story. He never was. The character is not the author of the story. I've written books. I cannot make my character the author of the story unless I put him in the story. Unless let's say, like a character like Jesus. Because that way, if I wrote myself everything that I would say, if I put my grace, if I put my being into my art, then who Jesus is, that's who He is. He's beyond the CPU. He's beyond that. He's the ultimate cheat code in the video game. He's the creator inside His own game. That's who He is. That's who Jesus is. When you write the character inside your own story and you decide the outcome, that's who Jesus is. That's who Jesus is. But we still have feeling, we still have pain, we still have emotion, we still have all these things. But don't come at from a place of I'm scared to feel this, I'm scared to feel that. Know that God is always in control, no matter what, of everything. Because He's the head of your life. That way you won't be played by the simulation. You won't be played by the video games, by the forces and the powers that are trying to play you right now, that are trying to program your mind with fear and a sense of hate in your heart, because you're past these things, okay? Because you know God's in control. So I'm gonna leave my 2 cents here. Peace.